Let me know when.
Welcome everyone to Synergy. We have a great guest today for you. If you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please like and subscribe. All the money that I will eventually make from this content will go towards helping people with emotional regulation and addiction and so forth. And when I can start making money with this, I can keep getting better and better guests. Not that we don't have great guests already, which we do. I think we probably get the best guests early because nobody's getting paid or anything like that. But without further ado, Evangelia Vensel is here, and I'm going to let her tell you all her accreditations and all her particulars because the list was too long for me to remember in my feeble brain. So, Evangelia, please tell us who you are, what you do.
Okay, hello to your tribe. I'm Evangelia Vensel. I'm gonna try to do my best to go down the list. I'm a survivor of severe childhood trauma. I'm a survivor and overcomer of drug addiction, pharmaceutical abuse, medical abuse. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I've been married for 23 years. My son is going to be 22. My daughter's about to be 18. um Going through a little bit of a chapter of nesting, empty nesting, because it's been an adjustment to have our son not living with us and then our daughter about to leave. So I'm on a journey right now. From the journey of healing, I became very, very ill from all the PTSD being suppressed inside my body and in my mind and in my spirit. I was being mistreated and misdiagnosed by the conventional medicine route until I almost took my life. I was very debilitated. I was bedridden. I was being told I had MS, early Parkinson's, early set dementia, and I was only 38 years old. So I was in complete degenerative mode. My brain was degenerating. And this is all because of all my unresolved issues that I'd had that I'd never really resolved with therapists. I'd sat on a therapist's couch probably since I was 16 years old. None of it was ever addressed. And so my body was holding the score. And eventually I just couldn't do it anymore. So I was ready to take my life and about to take all the pharmaceuticals all at once until God intervened. I basically was testing God because I didn't really believe that he existed, because I didn't think he loved me because of all the things that have happened to me and the illness that I was fighting and the pain that I was living in. And that was a big fat lie, that I was being told by what I say the enemy. God came in. I surrendered my entire life to God. Jesus showed up in that. I didn't know if I was having a hallucination, um, or if it was a dream, or if I'd actually did take my life and die, because I'd woken up in a very dark tunnel, and saw thousands of people suffering, crying, screaming. And I was in there and I was like, oh my God, this is my payback. I took my life and now I'm in hell. And it wasn't until I felt that tap on my shoulder and I turned, and that was the first time I'd ever seen Jesus. And I knew it was Jesus. And he just turned my shoulder and handed me a lantern and turned me around. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this light? And he's like, I need you to lead all these people out. And I was like, me? Like, no, what are you talking about? You got the wrong person here. And he was like, I didn't equip you with everything for nothing. And that was the moment. Sometimes I get emotional talking about it, because he turned my pain into power, and passion, and this will to fight for all these people that are still in that space of mental madness and emotional dysregulation, like you said, and trying to find these outside forces to just shut that vibration up, and watching the system profit off these victims. And so I've been leading those people out ever since. And I became a holistic health practitioner. I put myself through school. I started, I felt like God was showing me that our internal part of us was like this galaxy full of trillions of stars, just like the sky. And so a friend just out of nowhere came over and was like, I know you're sick. I know you're not well and you can't read, but I really think you should try to read this book, maybe a page a day. And it was the book by Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief. And so at that point in my journey, I thought, oh, well, this is God, because I surrendered to God, and God said, "I'm gonna lead you out, so everything that's gonna come to your path is coming because of me." So I was like, "Alright, I'm gonna read this book, but, I'm probably never gonna fucking read it." Excuse my language, but I read that book in 3 days, and it was the science and the truth behind how our traumas and our thoughts and our emotions create so much chaos within the body, and how to get out of that. And so I was like, I had an aha moment. I'm like, "Okay, I have to renew my mind." That's biblical. Um, that was the only way to transformation. So I went down that trail of doing the methods, which is called Psych K. It's psychology paired with kinesiology, where you get to actually get the wisdom from the body, and you get to discover what your mind actually believes. And my whole entire subconscious mind was a lie. I didn't love myself, I didn't feel worthy, I didn't feel deserving, I didn't feel capable, I didn't think I was gonna become anything, I didn't think I was gonna ever heal, and this is what my what my brain was telling my body. And I got the opportunity to say, "That's not what I want." "Okay, well, then what do you want?" "I wanna heal. I am worthy. I am capable. I am an amazing healer." All these things, and here I am now living that reality, that renewed version that God was like, "No, I need you to be a warrior. I need you to take these people out. I'm gonna give you the swords because the world is not gonna be so welcoming." And I've experienced that, and I'm grateful for you, people like you, and all these warriors that are coming together to try to create sacred spaces for us to be able to come together and talk and share the journey, and share that, yes, you can overcome addiction. Yes, you can overcome debilitating degenerative illnesses like MS and dementia. Yes, you can overcome that childhood trauma, or what your parents did to neglect you and abandon you. And I mean, it's not there's not very many victors, right? So how selfish of it would it be for me and you to become victors and not share it?
I couldn't imagine. Yeah, I'll take a break. I'm going to talk for a bit because you've touched on so many things that were part of my journey. The Bruce Lipton.
Yeah,
You know how that came to me? This is synchronicity. I was in Anhedonia after 2 months of withdrawal from Suboxone. I had lost the ability to walk for a while. I had become catatonic.
so
My
sorry.
legs would not obey my commands, so I'm
Same.
pissing on myself and stuff.
Yes,
They
all
didn't
of it.
understand it. And I gone through 2 months of 2 months that felt like longer than the rest of my 48 years on Earth
Right.
combined. These minutes felt like hours. They were torturous pain, emotionally, physically, the whole gamut. I became psychotic from lack of sleep
Yep.
at one point. I tried to kill myself in rehab by putting a bag over my head and going to sleep. They had to send me to another higher level facility that dealt with suicidal ideations.
Hmm.
And then when I got home, I had lied to get out of rehab. I said, I'm fine, I'm fine. They weren't giving me anything that was helping me sleep. The drugs they gave me were like candy to me because I've been doing them for
Right.
35 years.
Yeah.
It's like I could take half a bottle of these and it's
Right.
not going to make me tired.
Right.
Give me something real. And they turned the TV off at like 11:30 p.m. So I was just up awake, pacing, smoking, and whatnot. And I figured, well, at least at home where I can't sleep, I can watch Netflix 24 hours a
Right.
day. So
Right.
I give up on them. I'm just gonna keep telling them everything's hunky dory. I want to go home. I was still hallucinating on the plane ride home. I was having brief hallucinations. When I got home, my legs still wouldn't stop. I wasn't getting more. My sleep had gone from micro sleep because you still get sleep, but you don't know you're getting sleep because it's in such a micro burst
Yeah.
because your
Uh-huh.
your nerves are turning back on,
Yep.
and that's the restless legs. And then I'm laying on the couch like a sloth, anhedonic. I have no feelings now. The feelings just shut completely off. So nothing's interesting. People always say, "Oh, I wish I could just not feel." No, you don't. No, you don't.
Hmm.
Not feeling is disgusting. It's like living
Yeah.
like a robot. TV's not interesting, conversation's not interesting, food doesn't taste good, but you fill up just because filling up feels better than being empty.
Right.
So I was eating a lot and and I'm watching YouTube, I'm watching videos on the Anunnaki or some Babylonian mysteries or something alien oriented or
Something to
whatever.
actually stimulate your brain,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, something that's semi-interesting.
Yeah.
Now, if you've used YouTube, you know that a queue of videos come up after your search and they'll just
Right.
keep playing
Keep
for
going.
you.
Mhm.
And so I'm just watching the next one and the next one and the next one and the next
Yep.
one. And then Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief comes up. That's got nothing to do with Babylonian
That's God.
mysteries. Yes, exactly. And here's another thing about it. At this point, I am too hurting and too lazy to do a crunch to grab the remote control and flip to the next episode. So I just lay there and think, I'll watch some of this and see if it's interesting before I decide to do one crunch and
And move it.
move to the next station. Well, it's a pretty complicated, heavy subject, and it's just a lecture of him doing it. He covers everything in the book in like a 3 hour lecture, and it completely changed my life. I was like, oh my God, am I affecting the relationships with my children by
Yes.
thinking like terrible thoughts? Like, I was
Yes.
good enough at this point that I could use my words correctly, tell my son, hey, could you please, you're an adult, can you please pick up the towels off the bathroom
Right.
floor? One, he didn't want to hear from me because he was still so pissed about the years of addiction that I had, and
Well,
so I
he's
still,
probably holding on to so much resentment
yeah,
and anger.
exactly. So he doesn't want to hear me tell him anything, even in rational terms. I was like, made sure he heard it. He heard it. Yes, I will pick up the towels. Next day, towels are still there. But the thought before I could become rational was this. This little entitled bastard living here for free, can't
Yep.
even pick up his freaking towels. What is that, So that's the first thought. And then the second, okay, calm down, speak to him
You see that you
rationally.
start to he teaches you that you have to acknowledge that you're coming from a space of a feeling, the thought, right? You saw that, it created a feeling, and you were responding from a feeling versus going, "You know what? Let me just feel the feeling. Let me just get frustrated that my son didn't obey and listen, and let that pass and then come at my son in a rational way because that was my problem too. I had to start rewiring the way I responded to things. I had to start reprogramming um like how I would react to
Mm,
things. And then, my kids were just kind of like, this is a new person. You would have gone
yeah,
batshit crazy before if
yeah.
I did that. And I'm like, well, I'm done living that type of program. I myself cannot be that person because it drains me to be angry all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even about the other person that's being
Nope.
offensive. It's, do I deserve to be in Discord? No. So I'm not
Right,
going to be in Discord when they do something. I've heard a Buddhist saying before that said, if you offer someone a gift and they don't accept it, who does the gift belong to? Well, it belongs to the giver of the gift. Well, an insult is the same thing. I don't
right,
accept an insult because I'm truthful about who I am. So if you tell me, Paul, you're overweight. Yeah, that's true. The mirror
right.
has told me, so does the scale. If it's getting hard to tie my shoes, I'll eat a little bit better for a while.
Bruce
But
Lipton Bruce Lipton came to Washington a few years ago and did a lecture on Vashon Island. He doesn't like going to the cities because he's very smart. He's aware. And he put me up on stage as a testimony of the power of our own thoughts, the power of rewiring our subconscious programming that wasn't serving me, that was telling me what I didn't want, and then using the modality that Psych K or that Bruce Lipton and for what's he's associated with it, like he co-created it. Um, to reprogram those false beliefs, and how just changing my beliefs and my perception changed my entire outcome of the way my body functioned, the way my brain worked, the way I responded to things. And here I am on stage when a year before I was completely bedridden for 6 years. And people are like, "You didn't do." I'm like, "No, I just did what he told me to do, in that book." I acknowledged that I had a wrong thinking pattern and that I had programs installed from all the trauma that I'd been through. So
yeah,
I'm responding to the entire world from a trauma
Yeah,
response.
it's not even higher to cognitive function. It's not
No.
executive function
So like
happening.
when
It's
you were having your
reaction. It's action,
yes.
reaction,
So
action,
when you were going
reaction.
through that withdrawal, when you left, your body was trying to literally kick out poisons that you'd been putting in and dealing with the trauma you've never been. So your physical body was being literally a punching bag for all the PTSD and the drugs coming out. So you're going with withdrawals and major PTSD. And people don't understand that the body will literally physically shut down because of these unresolved issues.
I
And
think the body quits the bad soul. My soul
well,
was
it's like the
dying. The
body's
body
like, I
was
love
dying with
you.
it.
The body's like, I love you. I can't do anymore.
Well,
I can't co-regulate anymore.
what happened though? I'll tell you what happened because this is pretty cool. I stopped thinking those thoughts when he do something that annoyed me. I started thinking this. I was like, what do I want for my son? He's my son. I want him to have a happy life. I want him to have a rich, fulfilled life. I want the best there is for him. That's what I want for
Mhm.
my children. That's the underlying core value
Right.
of why I became a father, as I thought I could do a
Same.
better job than was done with me. And I
Yes,
did do a better job than was done
you
with me,
did.
even in addiction.
Mhm.
But when he would leave something around, I was like, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he just forgot. I'll remind him later, and so on. He'd mess up the dryer. He put his dirty shoes in there. It was all big,
Bubbling up.
you
Mhm.
know. He must have just made a mistake. I forgive him. I'm just gonna let him know when I see him. Please go take some paper towels and wipe that out and clean it, please. Within 2 weeks of that happening, my son, who was walking around the house all the time, creating a terrible vibe, smoking weed in front of me, slamming cupboard doors, stamping his
Sounds
feet.
like my son.
Yeah, and well, what happened one day, I get up and he's like, there was a storm the night before, some branches had fallen in our yard. He's like, can I use your reciprocating saw? I'll go chop up those branches that fell in the yard. And if you take the garbage out of the can, I'll take the garbage out to the curb and take it to the
Were you
side.
like,
I was like, who the fuck is this?
I
I was
know.
like, Bruce Lipton was right. I changed how I thought about then.
You change everything in your field and in your environment and those
Hmm,
around you when you do change. So when the quote says, "Be the change you want to see in the world,"
yeah,
that is the most truest quote because nothing will change in your world unless you change. You can't get mad at your husband or your wife or your children for mechanisms and behaviors that were created because of your own behavior. So then when you start changing your behavior, all of a sudden within 20 72 hours, you're like, is that my son? Did he just do that? And all because I
yeah. I
responded
was
in a
I
different
was
way.
flabbergasted. I was dumbfounded. I was just like, and then something else happened too. There was something that I was learning how to choose my battles, so I didn't mention everything that was going on, have a constant fight. I was like, if it's big enough, I'll mention it. If it's not, I'll just suck it up and I'll do it myself. It's just easier. Well, I was annoyed as hell his entire life that he squeezed the toothpaste tube from the center and then just left it like that in the cupboard. I never ever mentioned it to him. I was like, I'll just squeeze it from the bottom and fix it and and so on and whatnot. He started squeezing it from the fucking bottom. I was like, holy shit. Like, who is this? Holy shit, this worked. Then my mental illness neural pathways kicked in because
Oh
I
yeah.
knew I knew how to be obsessive.
Mhm.
So if something worked all right, I knew how to obsessively use
That's
it
what
to
I did.
make
That's what
everything
I
work
did.
right.
Yes. That's what I did with Psych K. I was so
Mhm.
obsessed after my 2 sessions on all the transformation that was taking place. I'm like, "Oh, I'm going all board. I'm gonna go back to school. I'm gonna fucking become certified in this. This is a game changer." All and then Bruce Lipton's lecture was about how and this was before COVID. He knew COVID was coming and he was gathering and doing these lectures about how we're in a state, humanity is in a state where chaos must take place
Yes.
to change because no change occurs without chaos. So whether that's in the body, whether that's in the mind, whether that's your car, whether that's your freaking house, your marriage, the whole entire system, he was explaining with great detail of how the banking system, the schooling educational system, the medical system, he goes, all of it needs to come down into chaos and crumble so that we can come back and reinstall a new way, a new program. And the only way that's going to happen is if we reprogram ourselves, because we've all been under some form of MK Ultra, brainwashing, right? So those of us that were kind of trying to cope with not being able to be programmed, we were using drugs. We were trying to co-regulate our trauma. We weren't
Oh,
worried about what the fuck was going on with the world because we had so much going on in our world, right? So now nothing's going on in our world, and all we have space for is to see what the fuck is going on with the rest of the world. So, that journey of everything that Bruce Lipton talks about of the reprogramming and how he would bring these big bowls on these tables and would bring a thing and pour salt on a table, and he'd go, okay, now I'm gonna use a frequency sound of anger, and he would boom, do anger, and all of the salt went literally off the table. So then he brought another person on stage, poured sand and salt on the table, and said, this, now we're gonna do the frequency of love. And then he did the tuning forks of love, and the salt and sand separated and made a design of a snowflake just from a sound. So he was trying to teach us that if your environments that you're living in have these crazy, because our emotions have a vibration and they get put out, right? So if they're coming out from us, then it's disturbing the frequency in your environment. And then that's disturbing the way your cells work. So he's like, every little salt on this table is one cell in your body. And I was like, oh my God. And then he starts talking about vibrational therapies and how it's the only way that God created a set of trillions of cells. And those cells only respond to his creations, which God created everything out of a vibration, his voice, right?
yeah.
Sound, colors, plants, the earth. And Bruce does such a beautiful job at saying if we can just decide to go back to that, God already gave us everything we need to become harmonized, to become community, to
Yep.
become, I mean, he's like one cell, if it floats away from its community, like let's say the cell is part of the liver, right? It belongs to the liver cells. Well, just like humans, when we venture off or get kicked out of a group, that's not normal existence. We're supposed to be part of communities. That's why, well, at least Bruce Lipton explains why they created indoctrination, because they knew humans work really well as community. So that's how they created corporate America. Let's train them to be worker bees. We can program them to obey the order when it goes against the natural cellular order. So we get stress, we get cancer, we get disease, we get PTSD, and it's all a vibration. And so when I try to tell people I do vibrational therapies, they're like, what? I was like, well, if you go back down the rabbit hole and you really want to understand how God created us and you want to change something, you have to change the vibrational of your thoughts, your emotions, your reactions, your food, what you're doing during the day. And a lot of people just aren't willing to do that kind of work. You did the work, I did the work, and now we're in a completely different vibrational state of being. We're like, we're like way up here while everybody's vibration is still down here. And every day, people like you and I have to come back down just to have normal conversations. And
Oh,
it's
yeah,
very, it can
yeah.
be draining.
I'm
It's like,
sure you're familiar with Masuro Emoto, and Masuro Emito's work
well,
with the
no, his
frozen
name's,
water.
so I studied him and I got to meet his son. I own
Okay.
their water machine. His name is Dr.
Oh,
Emoto. Yeah.
yes.
So um when Bruce Lipton introduced vibrational therapies and how we can change the crystals in water by just staring at it with intention, then he opened up the door to Dr. Emoto. And then I started studying Dr. Emoto for 2 years. And then I invested in his water machine so that I can make homeopathic medicine out of just water. I can take your palm and put it on this frequency pad and it'll pull up everything that's unharmonized in the body. And then you take water and you put it on the scanner and you push imprint and it imprints all the cellular frequencies into that water to bring harmony to that person's cells. And it's just water.
That's
We're made up
cool.
of water, right?
Yeah,
So if
exactly.
people and I'm like, look, if you don't want me to make you one, I'm gonna ask you as your assignment every single day, 3 times a day, fill up a glass of water, take a piece of tape, and write your intention on that water. And within 3 minutes, all of the crystals in that water, your body will receive it as what it needs. So just I mean, there's a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know? Have you seen that?
No.
Oh my god, you have to watch it. I watched it when I got out of rehab, and I made my kids watch it, and it's Dr. Emoto, Bruce Lipton, this is back when I didn't even know, and they're talking about the science behind intention, how the top athletes, they visualize the basket going in before it goes in, right? So, I learned that, and when I was sick, I sat 3 times a day for 22 minutes and only envisioned this version of me. Even though I couldn't walk, even though I was shitting on myself, even though I couldn't think, I only saw me helping people, building a wellness center, all the things I'm doing right now. I literally sat as if it had already been done. I was just watching episodes of my life and that I had to sit and be patient until it arrived. And there is nothing more powerful than the vibration of your own visualization. It's the power of whatever people wanna call it, the law of attraction or manifestation. Really, it isn't. It's like prayer. Ask and you shall receive. God can't give you what you wanna receive unless you show him. Or if you don't know, you say, "God, show me. Show me what are your intentions for me. Show me what your will is for me." And, oh my god, all of a sudden, you're gonna see all kinds of shit. And you're gonna be like, how do I get that? I want you to walk through it in your mind as if it's already here, as if I've already gifted it to you. And then I will slowly bring it into your world. And I'm just living proof of that. Like, fuck, I didn't know I was going to have a freaking house off grid. I I didn't know I was going to be, doing the things that I do, but he did. And I chose to believe and I'm like, okay, I'm going to just sit with your version of me. And the world doesn't really like it too much, but I'm not going to change because
Well, it
I'm
even
not
tells you the order. It even tells you the order. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer,
yes.
believe you have received it, then it will be yours.
It's
So
that
it's like
simple.
I need to ask, believe, it's already mine. I'm already
You've
have
already
this.
received it.
Already received it, and it's
Yes.
gonna come when it comes, and so
Well, and if
on.
it's not God's will for you, he's gonna give you something else. And a lot of people have a hard time and they struggle with surrendering that to a higher power, right? Um,
Yes.
and that's kind of the fault in humanity right now is that we've been indoctrinated and programmed to say we are the power. We're the things that do it. We don't need God, even though God is the creator and the doer of all things. So if people want to be their own god, and that's why we're failing as humans. We've been trained to say no, you are the god is within you, you are god, you are your own god. It's like no,
What the really sad thing about it is in the surrender, I found that just being godly, trying to do what I think God would want me to do,
yes,
serve the way I want, that God would
yes,
want me to serve and stuff like
yes,
that, makes me more godlike than I've
yes,
ever been in any other state of emotion. It's like
100%.
magic shit's just happening all the
Yes,
time.
I 100% agree because when I shifted my life into that, and just knowing that I'm doing this for I'm not here to serve man. I'm here to make sure that I'm serving God in the way he's brought me here to be, and it's not like everybody else. So I had to be okay with that. I have to be okay with the world not liking me or people not paying attention because in the end, God's paying attention to me. He sees my heart, he sees my intentions, he sees my struggle, he sees how hard I'm trying, and he's like, "I love you. Thank you. I'm proud of you. Fuck the rest."
What did Jesus look like? Is it something that can be described?
He was, a lot darker than I thought, um, a lot more masculine than I thought, because society has painted him as this white, fair-haired, beautiful, he looked more Middle Eastern, um, and but he was so gentle and so, like, everything just went away, like, everything was perfect, and it was like his his field or his love or what makes him Jesus is, nothing else fucking matters. That's what it felt like. Like, oh my gosh. all the things I've done and you're loving me? And then it just reminds me of like, I don't know the whole Bible. I don't know all of it, but I do know that the people he came here for were people like me, people like you, people that were broken, people that were lost, abused, addicts, whores. And he brought them to deliverance. And so I just want to be like Jesus.
Amen.
It's really that simple. I mean, like,
Amen.
whatever I can do on this earthly plane, no matter how corrupt it is, I'm going to hold that. I'm going to try in my best ability to be the best version of Jesus in my life I could be, and I have to accept that, well, if they killed that guy and they didn't want to hear him, what makes me think they're gonna not do the same to me? He already warned us what they do to me, they're gonna do twice to you. What I can do to man, you can do too. Jesus already told us we were all like him. So the system can't have people walking like Jesus. They can't have people healing people, laying hands on people.
Mhm.
Why do you think conventional doctors have laws they can't fucking touch you?
Yeah, yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, I studied like Qigong massage, moving energy through the body, and
Awesome.
I
That's the
mean,
best medicine.
I've read the Tao Te Ching, I've read the Upanishads, I've read the Talmud, I've read to try to glean as much as I can from the interpretation into English, which I'm finding is skewed by humanity, first of all, so it's coming through a person, uh, and it was all originally written in the Greek. And so my next challenge after I'm bilingual with Spanish is I'm going to learn Greek so I can
That's
read
great.
those
You
things
know that I'm Greek,
myself.
right?
Are you?
100%.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it was my first language.
Oh,
I
well,
don't know how
right
to read
on.
it though. I don't know how to read or write it because when we were growing up here, we had to speak more English. So over
Hmm.
time, I call it, I became whitewashed. Like my Greek isn't that great anymore, but I can understand the Greek language 100 times better than the English language. Like I don't question what words are coming out of that person's mouth when they're speaking Greek. I fully understand it. But I still struggle with some of the words, American words or how the Greek word translates it differently than in the English word. Like, um, I would love I've been to Greece once for a honeymoon and my soul just wants to go back there because they live so differently. It's like nobody cares what you do for a living. They just want to make sure you're happy. Are you happy? Awesome. I mean, people are just hanging out and gathering and whatever. It's just a different life over there. And then you come here and it's like everybody's so distracted and working and stressing out and trying to make a dollar.
Busy, busy, busy.
And
The
I'm like,
duck,
I don't know where everyone thinks it's freedom over here. You get your freedom if you work your fucking ass off.
the
You don't get your freedom until you
paradox.
retire.
I am going to write a book on the paradoxes I found of God. Eventually, I just keep them in a list right now, and I'll
Yeah,
write
I hear
essays
you.
and stuff on
I
them
have like
because
three that I go back and
they're
forth from.
they're also an oxymoron because they're paradoxically commonsensical. How can something be paradoxically common? But when you realize it, it's common sense. Like, well, I
Right,
should have realized that all along. Service
right.
is freedom.
Well, don't you
Uh,
think humanity is on a journey of we come here, we literally, God gave us all the answers, everything when we came here. It's in every cell of our body. But then
mhm,
we come here and they erase all that. So then we have to, and then they're like, we're going to erase it because we don't want them to know what God already gave them. And we're going to make them believe what we make them believe, right? So then you end
absolutely.
up eventually getting to a point where you have to be willing to unlearn and relearn it. And if you're not, then you will stay stuck. You will stay part of the program and the problem. It's like the problem doesn't
Mhm.
get solved by the same problem.
Well, he
I
showed
always,
me too. I was shown all the ways to make it happen fast. Go do it in a hypnopompic state when you first wake up, when you first open your eyes. You're between theta and alpha. It'll
yep,
set in quicker. Do it in the
right.
hypnagogic state, right when you're going to sleep. It'll set in faster.
Or
Learn
just
how to
trying to
get
get
into
people,
those states while you meditate, and you can
yes.
reprogram.
Well, some people, like, in the beginning of their journey where they want this, they can't really do that, so then I'm like, "You need your pineal gland detoxed because just you don't have to do anything." I'll send them specific frequency sounds that are literally over 24 hours will detoxify their pineal gland, and all of a sudden, they're, like, reaching out to me saying, "All these things are coming through. I don't know why, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "No, that's because that veil that the system put over you is now no longer there, and you have another eye that's been blocked that now can see all the shit. Everything they've created, from the poisons, from the shows, from the things that we see, literally block the pineal gland. They made us wear sunglasses, blocks the growth of the pineal gland. I mean, like, there's so many things when I started going down the rabbit hole of understanding how the pineal gland is and what it does for us. It's literally a looking glass into the things that the Lord needs us to see. It's how we connect. And so they found ways to make us not be able to connect and block the crown chakra and block out all the basically this top part here. They've put the throat and the crown and everything else in a box. So then all the other chakras are running rapid. The anger and the root and the no one knows what their soul are and their purpose. They are like, we're gonna tell you what your purpose is. I mean, it's literally like the movie Hunger Games and Divergent. They've trained us all to be in certain categories, and the ones that are like, I can't be in any category. You can't put me in a box. They're the outlaws. And here we are being the outlaws.
I
It's like
like
Star
it.
Wars. It's
I
like
like
Star
it.
Wars. We're like the
Makes me
rebels,
feel
right? We're like,
good.
it makes me feel good because I
Makes
know
me feel good.
we're here to be God's warriors to fight this spiritual war.
You
And
know, I
it's
mean,
wars aren't easy.
I don't mind Robin putting it up whenever I can. You know, there's things that are there's man's ridiculous laws, and then there's God's laws.
Right.
And whenever I've gone to God about things that I was not sure about, first time I started microdosing, I was
Mhm.
like, do I just want to get high? Is that what this is? But I
Right.
didn't. I felt good. I felt comfortable in my skin. I
Mhm.
could
Mhm.
regulate myself through meditation, through
Right.
breathing, through my disciplines,
Yep.
and so on. And I sat with it for probably like 3 or 4 months, bringing it, bringing it, bringing it, bringing it, bringing it, bringing it. And what finally settled through my cells, through my whole body was, you decide you are trustworthy.
Right.
And I didn't lie about it. I told my wife what I was doing. I said, if I start acting out of sorts, you know how my behavior is as an
Right.
addict. You let me know, and we'll see. She was pretty nervous, but I hadn't lied about it to anyone, and so on. And then I did it for a period of time, and then I just stopped. Uh, it was like,
Well, the chapter was over. You got what you
yeah,
needed out of it.
yeah, it helped to I think it helped to uncallus my heart further.
Uh-huh.
Because that's what fungus does in nature. It gets rid of toxins and heavy metals and
Mhm.
detritus off the porous floor, and helps the decomposition into good soil. So, it wasn't surprising that, that my heart seemed to open up much more during that period. I had hardened my heart through my life, through the trauma for so long.
Have you ever done ayahuasca?
No, not yet, but I will.
Me neither. It's something on my list that I keep teetering back and forth, and I always ask the Lord if I should do it, and it always says no when I muscle test. It says no. I have a lot of friends that want to hold space for me to do it, and I'm just kind of like, I know how to. God led me down a journey of how to activate the spiritual molecule without drugs. So
Oh,
for
I
me,
can
it's
do that as well. Yeah, through my
so I'm
breath
like, do I
work.
really need it? Do I do, or is it just the experience I need to go through to help others? Is it something I want to do? Bring a shaman and do the ayahuasca for some of the patients I'm working with when they come out here. But I've done trauma work without psychedelics, and they were transformed by being very coherent and part of the process. It's a two process. Like, it's the trauma therapy that I do is very instant. So it's not like you sitting in the trauma and you're feeling it all over again. We just ask your body if you've holding on to certain traumas at certain ages, and we ask the Lord if it's safe and appropriate to release. If it's a yes or no, then we go with that, and then we do the exercise to release it, and then they're just like, after 2 minutes after they've done it, they're like, "What the fuck was that?" That I felt it come all the way through my body and out my head. I'm like, "Yeah, we just released it." It doesn't need to be sitting on the couch for 10 years talking about the same fucking problem over and over again.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying?
The impartial wall talk therapy. When a person is as fucked up as I was at that time, I was like,
It's
oh, what do you want
re-inducing
to work
trauma.
on? I have no fucking idea. Everything sucks all the
Yes.
time, all
Yeah.
day long. It's
The
like
therapy
spaghetti
is
up there.
very I consider the psychology world of therapy crimes against humanity because it keeps people playing with their trauma like a broken record over and over
Yeah,
again, and then the
yeah,
doctors get paid for it. When that patient doesn't make any growth,
no.
it's
No,
like,
they don't.
well,
There's two modalities that I believe are starting to work toward that, and they have met resistance after resistance from mainstream psychology. And one is somatic experiencing.
mm,
Peter Levine wrote about that, and it was a way to get through trauma without having to re-experience the trauma,
right,
because that's
yes.
trauma itself to
Well,
re-experience the
that's
trauma.
that's Bruce Lipton calls it reinducing of trauma, and that's why he created Psych K. He's like, when you're a therapist and a doctor and you're seeing a patient for 2 years and they're not making growth, you're either that doctor's you're either the doctor that's like, something's gotta change, I don't know enough, or you're the doctor that's like, "Eh, well, we've done
Yeah,
everything."
fuck it. Let's
Right?
give
So
him another
Dr. Bruce
pill.
Lipton's like, "There's gotta be another way," and he hooked up with a psychologist, and they punched out how to release traumas without reinducing the trauma to the patient so they can actually get freedom and not have to think about it or feel it. The body already knows. The cells already know what you're holding on to. So if we just ask it, yes, I have trauma between ages 0 and 2. Is it safe and appropriate to release this trauma now? Yes. Okay. Which modality does it need to release this trauma? And then we go down the list and the body will pull yes to the what exercise it needs to release that trauma or change that belief or rewire that perception of that situation within 3 minutes. It's done. And when
Yeah,
I
I'm
experienced
gonna
it,
have to read much more on that subject.
I will
I'm
send you some
woefully ignorant,
information. I'll send you
but
information about
that
Psych
that
K,
makes so much logical sense. I mean,
and it's
because
very logical.
polyvagal theory jibes with that as well. How things are going through the nervous system,
Yep.
and then the idea. Like if you look at like Freudian therapy, he would be like, well, your values came from your upbringing, your culture, and so on and so forth. And it's like, well, wait a minute, I was brought up by, traumatized. I was
So we
raised
don't
by
even do that.
wolves that didn't have any
So
values.
with
They had some.
epigenetics, so Psych K is epigenetics and energy
Hmm.
psychology. And you the you don't have to ask the patient anything. You just test the body of certain statements. You make the patient say, I have this, I don't do that, I feel this way. Blah, blah. A real therapist collects the information and the wisdom from the body. We don't tell you, oh, you must have got that attachment from your father, blah, blah, blah. No, we're going to ask you, I got this attachment from my father. Yes. Is it safe and appropriate to release this attachment? Yes. How far back does this go? 10 generations. Releasing it now. We release 10 fucking generations of that trauma, that ancestral trauma that's whether been in the cells or the field, right? And this is a language a lot of people don't understand because they've only been through that one form of trauma healing, and that's through therapy, and that's through reinducing the trauma. And they're like, "Oh, you're a trauma therapist? Fuck, I don't want to go through the trauma again." And I get resistance. I'm like, "No, that's not what I do. Like, give me a chance. I will gift you one session so you can understand what I'm talking about." People still don't even take that. They still don't even take the free
No,
session.
no, I've had so many people that will piss and moan
Yeah.
about the
Well,
therapy's not
they're in victim
available
mode.
and so on. Yeah. And I'll be like, I'll work with you for free. I'll
Right.
work with you for free. And if it's starting to work for you, then you can pay me.
Yeah, that's not where
And
I've done charity therapy for 6 years. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm only gonna be ready for the people that are ready. I'm not gonna convince you. I'm not gonna drag your horse ass to the water and take your head and go drink the goddamn water. I mean, you
yeah.
can lead a horse to water, you just can't force it to drink, right? So I've been literally like, "Let me prove to you that you have trauma therapy that you need to get done. Let me prove to you that your belief system's keeping you fucking sick." Like,
Well,
I was part of a Lyme community. Why are they
oh
all
yeah, I
still
got
sick?
that too.
So when I had Lyme and I came out, Lyme is PTSD and parasitic infections. Start detoxing, change, renew your mind. Believe that you have the ability to heal. That has nothing to do with Lyme disease. You obviously didn't have Lyme disease. Nobody wants to hear about your positivity. And I'm like, okay, well, here we are 6 years later.
I don't
You're
have any
still sick.
pain.
Yeah, you're still sick, and I'm living a
Yeah.
whole entire existence.
I had chronic Lyme. I would my joints were
Oh my
terrible.
God, I'm so
I
sorry.
it's I can talk about now. I can talk about any trauma without it being traumatic though.
Yes,
So
because you've done the
it's
work.
not because it's like I can make jokes about it even.
Same.
and so on.
I
I
mean, I've
must
thought about doing stand-up comedy about
Yeah,
my
me
fucking
too.
trauma,
It's
and
like,
the abuse I've been through.
must have been a really sexy 5-year-old for them to wanna fuck
Yeah,
me.
I know. My uncle must have really got hard when he saw me when I was in that dress,
Friggin', and that's it. It's like that. Then that was one of my problems with like the 12-step fellowships was they worship Bill W.
Yep,
First of all, I'm not going to worship a man.
right.
And then also when they do the public speaking, often they would revisit the trauma again and again and again. And I didn't need to tell anybody about it for them to
I don't like to
understand.
tell people about the trauma, I just like to tell the people how I got out of it.
Exactly,
I
exactly.
mean,
It's
what's
like
the point of
I
going
did
back and s
enough that I was homeless. I'd been
yeah,
put in prison. My wife was divorcing me. My kids wanted nothing to do with me. You don't need to know how I pulled heroin through a cotton ball and
right.
shot up with Coca-Cola because I didn't have
Or yeah,
water.
it's sad because people that are still in trauma mode up in the subconscious and they're victims, right? They're in victim mode. It's like I have to prove to them that I've had trauma. I'm like, "Oh, well, I didn't ask to be raped multiple times. I didn't ask to be molested. I didn't ask for my parents to traffic me and groom me to an older fucking sick man at 13. I didn't ask for any of that. That's trauma. I didn't ask to have parents that beat the shit out of me every fucking day with a belt or strangled me because they had old school fucking Greek beliefs. So I'm just telling you, if you resonate with my post, it's probably because I was you and I made it out. And I'm here to hold space so that you can too. Like, this isn't a fucking competition. Who's sicker? Who's in more pain? Whose
Mhm.
trauma was worse? It's all trauma has the same vibration within the cellular system. Trauma for some person can not be trauma for another person,
And
right?
that's where we're going to segue into your childhood, into your early years. What was happening growing up? I mean, you just mentioned some of that.
Yeah, my environment was very hostile. My dad was always stressed out. There was 4 kids. My mom had to go to work when I was 3, so I got the detachment and abandonment there, where she just wasn't even around anymore. My grandma came from Greece to help raise us. My grandma basically kept me alive. She's the reason why I'm still alive. Um, she told me from a very young age that I was special and that I had an extra big heart that the world was going to attack. And that this is why my cousins bully me. I mean, my cousins bullied me. My siblings always bullied me. They always were telling me that I sounded like an alien and that nobody gave a shit about what I was saying, or they would overtalk me. Um, I got bullied in school. I had ADHD, so I had really bad grades. By the time I got to high school, I didn't even give a shit about school. I was partying. I
Yep.
skipped class. When I was 13, an older man from Greece came and our family kind of took him in, and he was a predator and he had his eye on me. And so my dad saw that and he was like, "Well, you can have her, but you have to wait till she's 18. I can get her ready for you," basically. And that guy didn't wait for me to be 18. He started coming around being a predator and feeding off of my teenage hormones at a very young age, and I fell victim to all of that. I was being abused by him. I was being manhandled by him. He was abusing me. He destroyed my uterus to where I had uterus issues. I almost couldn't get pregnant. I got pregnant and had he abused me so hard during intercourse that I it caused me to lose the baby, and I was only 16. So I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse, but I was told I was never gonna have kids, but I had 2 kids because I was determined and God had another path for me. And it's just I just lived a very it was like, my parents barely spoke English. We were Greek. We weren't allowed to do what the American kids did. And so I was the defiant one. I wanted to do what the American kids did. I wanted to go to birthday parties. I wanted to go to slumber parties. I wanted to go to the school dance. So I lied and I would sneak out and do these things. And one time I lied and went to a school dance. My dad showed up at the school dance. One time, some boys came to my house just to hang out, and my dad chased them down with a fucking shotgun. My dad put a gun to my head when I was 8, made me because I was playing house with with the neighbor boy. I mean, everybody fucking plays house, right? You're just experimenting, and uh, my dad found out, so grabbed me by the head, dragged me to his bedroom, locked the door, made me get on my knees, and then pulled a big gun out, placed it to my head, and said, "I would rather go to prison for killing you than raising a daughter that's a whore." Even though even it was like that was the camel that broke the back. That's what compromised my immune system. That what caused me to have PTSD. And then that's where I created the field of trauma, sexual trauma like that. It was like all of a sudden I became a magnet for predators. My uncles would grope me, my cousins would grope me at sleepovers, and I just had a belief that this is just who I am. My dad says I was a whore. Boy, my dad would say it doesn't matter what you wear, what you do, what you say in this world, who you become, men are only gonna want you for sex. Don't wear that. Or like my mom would dress us all the same, and then he'd like point at me and go, "Why does she have to look like that in that dress? I don't want her wearing that." So I was always being kind of I just was always being aware that, that I had this thing that men were all that's all men wanted me for. That's all I'm here for. And, that was a lot of the belief work that I didn't realize was still playing subconsciously when I was doing the rewiring. I had, like, all these beliefs of who I was, and I was like the practitioner, she's like, "Is that what you want?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Let's change that because that's what your body believes. That's what your mind believes. That's what your heart believes." And I was like, "Oh my god, no. I don't wanna be that." And it was very emotional because I was continuously living this narrative and program of ide a false identity. And that's what broke me. That's what breaks anybody. If you're living a lie against your authentic self, the body and the mind and spirit will always be dysregulated and will have problems, until we've all been indoctrinated to not be anybody but who the system tells us we are, who our teachers tell us we are, who our friends tell us we are. Do the job everyone thinks you should do, right? But never do what you really want to do. So then when there's people now in the world like us doing what we really want to do and what we're here to do, everyone's just like, that's crazy. That's weird. You don't have a normal job? It's like, no, I don't want a normal job. I don't. I don't fit in the box, I've had to change my perception around men so that I could actually work with men, and not feel like they're all predators and they all just want me, this way. And I was like, fuck, if I'm going to be a therapist and work with these men, I can tell you right now as a therapist, there are more men with trauma than women. I have more male clients that have had severe sexual trauma as children, abusive parents that neglected them or trafficked them, left them alone, to fend for themselves. Uh, the females that I have are more, they, had narcissistic abuse, where their needs weren't met or they weren't nurtured. The men that I worked with were violated. And then from that point forward, they became severe addicts, bad behavioral problems, horrible relationships. That's a program. That's a
Uh,
subconscious program. And until,
you've touched on so many things that I've experienced personally, and also, the blend between that and what my wife has personally experienced. She grew up, she was emigrated here when she was two, and so it's like the family was Portugal and she was the United
very
States.
cultural.
And so she went through that, a lot of the old school, beating she was getting constantly,
Mhm.
and her mother and father were always at work.
Right.
The family worked toward the house,
Yep.
toward the family,
Yep.
and so on, and and yeah, I mean, so I start thinking that we start resembling what we behave like and what we need to, so it's like, at a certain age I started getting really good looking. It's like, this
Mhm.
sound vain, but and I think it was because I needed to be, because I was so fucked up.
Right.
Unless I
Right.
was really attractive, then nobody was going to be able to stand to be around
Right.
me.
Right.
And then I've also like started seeing people. It's the old saying your mother would always say, don't make that face, it's gonna stay like that.
Right.
And I've seen that now as like people's personalities that stay a certain way resemble their behaviors. I've seen women
Yeah.
that's
Or they
looking like
resemble their
pigs.
parents. Yeah, or
Yeah.
you get older and
Mhm.
you know, you grow up saying, "God, I'm never gonna be like my parents. Oh my God, I'm never gonna be like my parents." Then you become a parent and you're older and you're like, "Oh my God, I sound like my fucking dad. Oh my God."
Yeah.
So those are programs that we were
Yeah.
all so, like, going back to Bruce Lipton, he talks about how from birth to 7, our brain is like a sponge that's chronically uploading information with or without us. So he has a famous quote, I don't remember. It's like, "Give me the 7-year-old and I'll give you a man." It's like, well, the 7-year-old and on is his programming from 0 to 7. So, what was happening from his dad, his mom, his environment, his teachers, from that, because that's gonna determine his fate and his outcome. So then when you start to discover the programming and you're like, "Oh my god, that programming goes way the fuck back to since I was, like, 3, and you've been living it your entire life." That's where the resistance comes, that's where the frustration comes because you're like, "Why do I keep repeating these fucking patterns? Why can't they change? Why can't they make this different?" That's because it's subconscious, and we aren't aware of what's playing in our
Oh,
subconscious.
yeah, it starts
Um,
happening in utero. They've done studies in utero of what's happening with stressed out
people
mothers and stressed out
yeah,
babies.
Bruce Lipton talks about the vibration of the ultrasound light and the
Mhm.
sound of the ultrasound to a baby inside the womb, and he plays a tape of a baby inside a woman's stomach
Mhm.
with the ultrasound technician, right? And every single fucking time, the baby moves away. And then the lady's gotta, "Oh, wait, they moved around. I gotta fucking find the baby." And the baby's literally running from it. So then he shows a video of the same vibration of the ultrasound, and it's no different than an adult standing at the literally at the edge of a fast train going by. And you wanna, like, step back because it's that vibration is the same for
Well,
the
even
babies.
that, and then with male circumcision. I mean, culturally, it's so accepted now that it's not even a thing. But
Well,
when we
I didn't know
started
what I didn't
having
know.
Arabic people coming into the country and still performing ritual circumcision, female circumcision, we said that's fucking
That's
horrible. Don't do
yeah.
that. You can't do that here. So it's like, but yet and yet we're accepting that for male children. That's the first
Yeah,
thing
I
they
mean,
get
like,
out,
I
you're
didn't know
cutting
what I
off
didn't
part
know.
of them.
I
That
didn't
hurt.
know what
I
I didn't
imagine
know.
I imagine that hurts very badly, and it wasn't until the '80s that they even started using anesthesia when they would operate on
Dude, I
infants.
couldn't go in the room when my son was doing it. My husband went in. My friend told me she was so traumatic. She went in and all it was like murder. Like you're awake while you're being mutilated for a baby. So
Yeah.
it's this early induced trauma so that the body understands trauma at a very young age and it learns to
It
be obedient.
wants to harden the hearts to make people warlike, so they can send them to war for Bank of America. You
I know, but it's
know,
like I didn't know what I didn't know. My son was circumcised. My husband's circumcised. I don't know what it's like to be with a man that's not circumcised. I've heard theories that men that are circumcised are very easily indoctrinated. They're easy to obey the system,
Yeah,
right?
it doesn't shock me at all. And in having read the Old Testament as a holistic reading rather than intrinsically contemplative prayer and meditation on particular scripture and so forth, I was aghast for a while. It really it shook me very deeply to read that and get an overview of
What
the
does the
whole
Bible
thing.
say about circumcision?
Well, you get lost in the early stuff about the King of Salem meeting Abraham and so on. Who's this King of Salem?
What was the purpose
Uh,
of removing the foreskin?
yeah, we don't really get a purpose. God said so, so he did. Uh, and
So then why do some do it and some don't? Why do some believe in it that know
They
the
used to
Bible?
believe it was cleaner, that you could get less likely to get an infection,
Oh,
but
right.
that's not really true either, though,
But
because
that's
while
not
you
true
have it,
because
you're open.
I have guy friends that aren't circumcised, and you would think you would get more infections without the foreskin because God created the foreskin for protective
Yeah,
reasons,
exactly.
right?
And so it's hard to reconcile the Old Testament God with Christ. It's very difficult. It's
Well,
very
it feels like
difficult.
it's 2 books. It's like everything just changes when Jesus comes onto the scene.
Yeah,
All of a
so
sudden,
that
you gotta
always
ignore
gave me a lot of trouble because it's like, okay, they go to the promised land and they have to kill the people that are living there already because they displease God, but also their women and children. Okay, that doesn't sound like anything I've experienced of God personally. So most of my experience of God comes from connecting to God transcendentally in
Mhm.
with the Holy Spirit in contemplative
Well, then that
prayer
that must
or
be that must be the
meditation.
problem, because you've got all these people that have read the Bible, and then they're cherry picking, "Well, I'm gonna live my life the First Testament." Well, no, I'm gonna live my life when Jesus came onto the scene. So now we're gonna be at war because Jesus wasn't living during that time, and this was the rule of God, right? Now Jesus is living, and this is the new rule. So it's like you've
I
got this
I
big division.
I personally think that he got a lot of stuff from Egypt. I personally believe that. The reason that I started following Jesus Christ was because I was told to. I had like a dream. When you have those dreams that aren't regular, just nonsense going on to exercise your brain. Well, I had a dream when I woke up from it, wasn't going back to sleep, profound. I got up, I woke up, and you go to the door, and it's early in my prayer life, and it's like I just feel this overwhelming feeling, learn about Jesus Christ and follow his
That
example.
yeah, I got that too because it
Yeah,
was like I was following all the wrong gurus. I was being guided with guided meditation by all these people, and all of a sudden I have that one night and I meet Jesus and he's like, "You don't need anybody else. Follow me. I will show you. I will be your guide. I will teach you. I will teach you how to walk the way that God wants us to walk and to live and to love." Right? Not Gabby Bernstein, not fucking all these other little online, people that I
yep,
was like looking up to as if they were going to save my life. And I wasn't being saved. I was kind of learning new things, but in the end, I was still suffering in my flesh. I was still suffering in my mind. And then until Jesus showed up, it was like it was a game changer. He's the only person that we should be learning from. He is our greatest teacher. That's what he's here for, right? There is no greater teacher than Jesus. God wouldn't have come down in flesh to teach us nothing. He literally came down and go, "This is how I need you to be. I'm gonna show you an example, and there's no better way to learn than from example," right? And
yep, there is not.
he was the ultimate example and the ultimate sacrifice. So, to me, I'm like, I'm willing to sacrifice
Well,
my
even
life
if you
because
go to what people consider hateful Christian scripture, the particular one that they always go to is no one goes to the Father except through me. And so on. But if I read that deeply, if I read the esoteric meaning behind what he's saying, then it's not hateful at all. It's you have the Father in you. Like the Hindus would talk about the Atman. The Atman. I feel like my Atman's back here, right?
okay,
That there's like a point of my skull right back there. And when I'm in meditation, that's what feels like the witnesser of what I do lives.
okay,
So not God sitting on a throne watching how many times Paul has masturbated.
right,
Oh, he did it again. A
right,
bad Paul, what a terrible, terrible child. And so no, he didn't. It's no, he's in you already. When you're violating what is already part of you, you're going to be discordant.
right.
So it's like these rules and regulations and the Pharisaical, the 600, I think 610 commandments of Deuteronomy and so forth. No, you got that already
Well,
there.
it's like
It's
the
already
powers that be.
witnessing.
Yes, the powers that be are like, we have to do everything in our power to not awaken the God within God's
And
people.
who experiences the Father, the Son, the child? The only way to experience the Father is to be separate from the Father to experience Him, to go back to, oh, this is what the Father wants. This is what I'm
Right,
supposed to be doing. This is the
right,
way to live. Oh my God, it's harder, but when I do it, I'm happier. I feel more
right,
content, and so
right.
on. So,
Mhm.
anytime I would get those messages that I would take to the Spirit, and get the interpretations from, they always physically in my body felt
Mhm.
right, but they weren't always the easy thing.
Right.
Oftentimes it's, show more love, more forgiveness, more patience, more tolerance.
Okay,
And
so now that we're on that topic, how do you feel about the transgender community that believes, that they love Jesus because Jesus accepts them?
I believe that God accepts everybody. I don't have to tell anyone what's right for them because they already have exactly what I have in them. If they are
Okay.
going against what they already have inside them, they will know it. My biggest problem with the doctors that are foisting this upon another generation is the same thing as when they staple people's stomachs to stop them from eating. They thought, oh, when I get thin, I'll just be happy. I'll be happy and thin. No, you are eating your emotions. Now you
Mhm.
cannot eat your emotions. They switch to alcoholism, addiction, sex addiction,
Yep.
gambling, because they no longer can do the thing that they were doing to make themselves feel good. It wasn't anything to do with the dysmorphia of their body
Right.
or anything like that. And we are selling a whole generation of bill of goods that you just go have different hormones, different surgery, you're gonna feel 100%. That's why the rate of suicide in
I've
post-transformational
watched at least
transitions
15.
is higher than before they transition.
I've witnessed and watched court cases of girls and boys in their 20s that had parents that allowed them to get a sex change as they were teenagers, and now they're traumatized. Now they can't get out of it. Now they feel like they're stuck in some monster body that it's theirs, but
Yeah.
they're showing their mutilation, and parts of who they really are coming through, and they're feeling blocked. Well, yeah, because you took fucking blockers,
When
but
I
now they're trying
read
to sue their parents. They're trying
when
to
I
sue the system. Oh,
what I read into judge not, lest ye be judged, or forgive me forgive my trespasses as I forgive those who trespass against me, I don't have to be the judge. They have the judge within them already. So all I have to do is lead a person to the truth and to start being truthful to themselves, and they'll find what I found. So the
right.
greatest proselytization that I could ever do is the example that I can possibly set.
I think I just struggle with it because, I have some clients that are, ever since this whole transgender movement came, all of a sudden they're like, identifying with something else, and I'm holding my truth, and I'm just like, well, can you be patient with me? I asked them to be patient with me, my understanding, because it's gonna take me a while to change my perception about this new information that to me is, um I don't hold judgment against them. I will hold space for them. I will be friends with them. I don't give them shit, but at the end of the day, it is my soul that hurts for their soul because they're lost. If you don't know or can't agree with how you were created, then that's a mental illness. That's a that's trauma. Like, so most of these individuals that are transgender or don't know their genitalias or whatever, they're lost. They've 90% of them have all had major sexual trauma. And now they're in a generation where the medical system and society has figured out a way to kind of soothe that. Oh, well, if you don't want to touch boys, you can just, turn into a boy if you because of the trauma. Or well I was raped when I was little by my father, I can't have men touch me, so I feel safer with women. Great, but that doesn't mean you have to turn into a man. You know what I'm saying? Like this mutilation and ritualistic thing of the body to destroy natural God's order of how the body functions and how it was developed. I do have a huge heart for those that are born with both. Um, but like this whole movement of allowing, men to beat women and be in our categories, I'm trying not to be a bully or judgmental. I just truly believe that they need their own category. It's really like, just leave the biological women to
Well,
fight biological men.
I completely believe that if they're led to, the first thing that developed, Carl Jung talks about a truth instinct, and I think it's Maria Louise von Franz. She was one of Jung's students, and she talks about truth instinct in her book. It's Alchemy and something else. So it's about spiritual alchemy, and and Dostoevsky also said it in his book, The Brothers Karamazov. He said, above all, do not lie to yourself. Those who lie to themselves can no longer see the truth. Failing to be able to see the truth, they can no longer love and fall into all manners of bestial
So then do
behavior.
you believe that these people they're basically lying to themselves?
Yes, I think there's a lot of that in
I mean,
everybody,
and to
not
have, I
just
guess
trans though. I think
I
it's
have,
so prevalent that people lie to themselves. I was vain all my life.
well,
So
it's
if I
different to
gained
lie to
weight,
yourself and then but then have your parents literally agree with the lie and go along with it as a fairy tale. Like
well, there's not much
I
courage. That's the
well,
problem. The biggest
this
problem is the
generation,
courage.
yeah, I have friends that are teachers in public schools and they have litter boxes out on the recess field for the children that identify with animals so that they
Yeah,
can go
yeah.
to the bathroom.
I just had a
Like this,
patient like that.
and I'm just like, "Wait a minute. How are parents even agreeing to that?" "Oh, I'm being non-judgmental. I'm loving my child. I'm letting them be who they really wanna be." So you're allowing them to think they're a cat. When you, as you said back here, know damn well your child ain't a cat.
But you cannot hear that voice in you while you're lying to yourself. So that feeling of believing that God is when I go into the meditation. Here's what I couldn't do in the meditation. That's why I always tell people when they're going to do contemplative prayer or meditation, and they're going to get somebody in their head from YouTube or something like that. Say this, just say a simple prayer before you do it. Please protect me. God will protect you.
I mean, I've
You
done belief work on people, um, and when you clear the lies out, only truth is revealed. So they find God, then they find truth, and then they find themselves. So
the
until the lies
smallest
get cleared,
ones were
it's
like
always the smallest lies.
lies I would tell myself about myself that I wanted to believe.
Right.
I'm good looking, I'm this, I'm that,
Whatever you believe is true.
and if I gained weight, I would go to the person who would butter me up and say, no, you don't look like you gained any weight, and so on. The scale told me I gained weight, the mirror told me I gained weight, but I'm gonna go with the person that wants to butter me up for whatever their ulterior motive is,
Yeah.
so I do that. As soon
That
as I
sounds like my
stop doing
husband.
that, I
Like,
stopped doing it. I was like, nope, if I gain weight, I gain weight. That's not where I'm seeking my value anymore. I
right.
have value besides my
Mhm.
appearance and how I look. And then in that frame of meditation where I believe truly that you connect with God, I could net that voice, that feeling, it's not usually a voice, it's usually an overarching feeling, sense of peace or whatnot, would never let me lie to myself in that realm. Like if I got in a fight with my wife and I'm trying to meditate and calm down, and my human thing is, oh, she's being a big bee and
Mhm.
she's full of crap and this and that.
Right.
And then this little voice would go, you were a jerk too.
Right.
You can't control how she acts. Why don't you
Right.
go apologize for your jerkiness?
Yep.
And so every single time I would get into that space, I would only get the truth from that point of God that is in
Right.
all of us. So
Right.
it might be a hard truth, and I might not want to swallow it,
Well, I always tell
and
people
so
that
on.
voice in your head is God.
Yeah,
It sounds like you, but that's God. It's,
yeah.
something's you're like, "Oh, something's telling me not to do that." That's
And
God.
is the Father greater than me? Of course.
Of
Of
course.
course, yeah, he's the source. I just have the peace. I have that peace within my DNA, within my soul, within my nerves, within everything. Can
Battery's about
God
to
be an
die.
individual and be everything? Of course he can. He's God, so he can be both. The interpretation really starts opening further to me. And let's see. Oh, what did you have any, were there any like significant people that stood out that along your journey growing up? Were there any good mentors? Were there any good influences? Well, you
Um,
mentioned your grandmother.
yeah, my grandmother was a really great mentor for me. My cousin it's really sad. The ones that were mentors for me all passed away. So
So,
I believe that they were with me when it came to my journey. Because every time I went and saw a healer, they always told me, oh my gosh, you walked into my room and you've like three female guides with you. And it was the only female women in my life that encouraged me, um, helped me get on the path of being a hairdresser, being a stay-at-home mom. Like all the things that I became were because of these women. And then when they all died of crazy cancers, when I got sick and was being diagnosed with crazy things, I felt the intuitive download that they were going to lead me in a different direction so that I wouldn't have the same fate. They all had the radiation, they all had the chemo, and they all got fried to death. Okay. So I was like, I'm not doing it that way, and I'm doing it for them. I'm going to take the holistic route, even if I die. I'm not going to be poisoned to death. I'd already been poisoned. So, there was one teacher that was really great. She kept telling me in high school that if I ever felt lost, to turn to my writing. She thought that I was a fantastic writer and I just didn't have good confidence in myself because my environment, my parents didn't give me that confidence. So I within myself didn't have it. And I had a hard time believing her. But then when I got to that point in my journey, I literally heard her voice loudly, Evangelia, write. And I was like, whoa, I got like chills all over my body. And then I started praying about it. And I was like, Lord, I'm trying to get the message out. I'm trying to share the glory of your testimony, but the world's not allowing me. And I heard him say, I need you to write a book. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, this is the second one. How am I going to write a book? I've never written a book. I like to write, I like to journal, but write a book? So it took me, I would say, a year of sitting on write a book, write a book, write a book. And then I would try to write and it just wouldn't work. So then I got the download one time, just go to the cabin, go alone. And I was like, oh my God, I've never gone to a place in the woods by myself. Like, I'll be scared. I need a gun. Like, I was all freaked out. My husband's like, you can do this. If you don't feel comfortable, you can turn around and come home. I was like, you're right. It's my cabin. I'm like, the Holy Spirit's going to meet me there. Or I wouldn't feel drawn to say, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to try it. That was when I wrote my book. I showed up at the cabin. It was all cold and I was by myself, and part of me was getting scared. And I'm like, nope, that's the enemy. The enemy is literally going to try to sabotage me from doing God's will. And God's will was, I need you at the cabin in nature with just me to get the message out. And so I just bucked up and I started meditating and blocking out all negative forces and energy. And it was like the pen came in my hand and I wrote from 11 p.m. all the way to 6:30 a.m. in the morning, and I closed the book. I was like, did I just write a book like this? Wait. And then I read it and I'm like, that wasn't me. That was the Holy Spirit. I'm like, wow, that wasn't even the original book I was writing. I've been trying to write a book for 2.5 years. And all of a sudden, this thing comes out in like 8 hours. And it was like everything all in one in 76 pages. And I thought it was going to end up being like this huge ass novel, right? Like I was never going to get through it all. And nope, it was written very simply, logically. It didn't matter where you were at in your journey. You're going to understand what I'm saying in this book. And it's going to allow you to awaken areas that you were not aware of. And it was very simply written. And I read it 100 times. Like, I can't believe I wrote this. Like, that came out of me, but I know it didn't come out of me. Spirit came out of me.
mhm.
And I just now, after that experience, if I feel called to do something and I instantly get that fear, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it. I'm like, nope, God's telling me I need you to do this. Overcome that fear or overcome that feeling. And then the enemy will try to come in and give you reasons why you can't do it. Right. So now, because I'm at that level of understanding of how the enemy works in our minds, he only attacks our minds because he knows if he gets into our mind, it's going to affect the body because the body only follows the mind. So your body is your mind. Your world is your mind. Your creation is a creation of your mind, right? And that was a whole other journey of like, wow, we all have the power to create the worlds that we want. So I'm like, you know what? This to me feels like we're living in hell, but God told us we can create heaven on earth. And so I'm going to create my own heaven on earth. I don't
Exactly.
care what's going on around. I am living in God's paradise right now among his creation. Um, And that to me is glorifying him.
It's like having a foot in each world.
Yeah, you got to have
You
one
know,
foot in
it's
the
like
matrix, and then you got to have one
and
foot in the spiritual realm of understanding to stay strong, because the world is created for us not to survive unless we're a part of the matrix in some way, right? So then you got us outlaws trying to make it work, trying to support rent and mortgage and bills by not being a part of the matrix, and they're like, haha, it's not going to happen. You're either going to be in a trailer, you're going to be homeless, or you're going to be living with someone. I mean, unless you get creative and find a way to create your own businesses, which I felt God was telling me. I've been a hairdresser for 28 years. I'm a master stylist. I went to beauty school to learn how to be an instructor. I did stage presences, I did presentations. I taught hairdressers new techniques. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm going to put that on hold so I can be a full-time mom. And it's not like the salon world's going to go anywhere, right? 20 couple years later, I'm back in the world, and I'm like, nobody wants to do safe beauty. I've been interviewed by amazing salons. They hire me because they're so stoked, and then the next day they tell me, you have too much knowledge, you do too many things. I don't think this is the right salon for you. And I'm like, oh, you guys are just intimidated by my knowledge and my wisdom. I get it. You've only been doing hair 12 years. I've been doing hair double the amount. You're afraid I'm going to take over your salon. So all these doors kept closing, and my inner child was like, nobody wants me. I'm not good enough. Oh my God, I'm being rejected. That rejection room came up, right?
mhm,
And then I started praying about it. God's like, no, no, no. I have something for you. You're going to do this shit on your own. The reason why you're getting resistance is because that's not the door I want you to open. Those doors are closing because I have another one for you. You are going to be your own boss. You're going to have your own salon, doing your own things that I need you to be doing, that most salon stylists don't. I'm like, I try to bring awareness to the beauty industry and clients and people in the world and women and hairdressers. I'm like, you do know that hairdressers are causing illness in the world, right? You're contributing to toxicity. You're contributing to women getting fibromyalgia and cancer. You're contributing to heavy metal poisoning in women. And I had to take ownership of that. I'm like, oh my God, I've been in the industry this long. And all of a sudden now I'm showing a whole other side of the industry because my job as a hairdresser gave me heavy metal poisoning, which conventional medicine was calling early Parkinson's. Because
mhm.
I was shook like this. I couldn't move. I couldn't hold a fork. And that was all heavy metals that had gone to the blood barrier of my brain from years and years of breathing in perm and bleach and nail polish and all the poisons. And then when I had to go down the rabbit hole, when my doctor's like, no more, Evangelia, this is going to kill you. You have to stop doing hair. And I was like, okay, you don't understand, Evangelia. You can't tell Evangelia she can't do something. So I'm going to find another way. It took me 2.5 years, $6,500 of investment to find the safest, cleanest, non-hormonal, cellular disrupting products, non-toxic hair dye, non-toxic eyelashes, whatever. All the things that these Miss Piggies are walking around putting all over their bodies and faces, not knowing it's disrupting their hormones and their cells, and they're going to get cancer eventually. It's great that you look like Miss Piggy right now, but in a few years, you're not gonna feel pretty. You're gonna look pretty, but you're gonna feel like death. I've walked through it, right? And so hairdressers don't even want to hear me. I've asked to go to beauty schools, salons to bring awareness and education, and they just shut me down because it's like the big pharma. You start telling people, pharmaceuticals are poisonous, they lose customers. You start telling women that hair dye you're doing, that's poisonous. There's actually a non-toxic organic version, then the hairdresser salon industry loses. So I'm up
Okay.
against a lot of monsters with what I do.
I've had to I literally have to dumb down my resume to get hired somewhere.
Yeah.
And so on. I mean, it's so good and none of it's lies. It's not embellishment, it's not exaggeration. It's just stuff that I was led to. And I believe I was led to it through my prayer, my morning prayer as soon as I wake up is very, very simple. I make my bed, I get on my knees and I say, please place me where I may serve you best.
Yep, me
And
too.
that's the end of my prayer so this weekend of disruption and no AC and pool not working, Maybe that was the best place I needed to be because I think she was subtly getting demented, and a doctor would not have noticed that. I almost missed it, and I had spent 2 days with her,
Maybe your
and she
purpose
wasn't
there was to help
grasping.
her.
Yeah, so I mentioned it when I asked for the discount. I said, "You might want to see your. I know it's going to insult her, and she's going to be upset." I was like, "You might want to see your doctor. I think that you're starting to get." Some onset dementia.
Yeah, she's
So
probably
she's probably fuming about that right now and so on, but there was no real nice way to say it. I did tell her she was a lovely woman. She's a good person and so on. It's just some of the rigidity and some of the concepts that she wasn't grasping during the time I was there. And since I've been through like the last 7 years of my mother-in-law was her dementia and losing everything, we took care of her
it's a
while
lot.
she was going through that. And so I've firsthand seen that. Plus, with the mental illnesses, both the ones I've had and then the ones that of the people I've worked with, I have an uncanny and young settings, like there's no one more perceptive than neurotic. It takes one to know one, in other words, like I'll
Mhm,
see
mhm.
things that it takes the shrinks a week to see. I'm like, he's
Well, and
flat.
that's
He's got
where I
autism.
feel God equipped you, like, when you're a trauma victim and you're in that space where you're like, why me? Why did this all happen to me? And now you're over here and you're like, oh, if I didn't go through any of that, I wouldn't have been able to pick up what's wrong with that person. I wouldn't have been able to pick up or call out on their shit, call them out because you're like, no, bro, I've been there, done that.
I remember
I've seen people.
the day it happened, all my life I've been, why has this happened to me? Why has this happened
Right.
to me?
Same.
And why is everything so fucked up here?
Right.
As I studied history about it and, what they put out there as history. And then, you know, I, then I interviewed for this internship. I just trained as a peer recovery specialist to help people
Nice.
with addiction and mental illness and so
How,
forth.
how long did that take?
It was quick. It was quick. It was like probably like 40 hours of classes and CEUs, continuing ed
Did
things,
it cost a lot?
and then you had to work 500 hours in the field and take a test.
So when
Uh,
you when you worked in the field, you had to
no,
go to
I don't think
rehab?
it cost me anything. I think that the place was just trying to get more peer recovery specialists out there. You know,
Can you send me a link to that?
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure
I
they
don't
have that
have
out there.
I don't have any certification to be a mentor or help people with addiction, but I've brought people out here as an alternative rehab to get them sober off meth and cocaine and
Mhm.
other drugs. Um, but maybe this certification would help me be more legit for people and family members that want to send a loved one out here because they're like, well, where are your credentials? And I'm like, well, I've been sober for 16 years and I do the trauma work that causes addicts to be an addict. And once we do this work, they will not have those beliefs anymore for them to want to go back to being an addict. And so they have a hard time understanding that. And so I've been a mentor for kids without, I just feel like the world for victims and trauma victims need mentors. They need people to guide
Yes, you've been programmed even by every rehab that says it's all or nothing.
them. Right,
You have to become an ascetic. You're basically becoming a monk. You can't have any kind of external
right,
pleasure or whatnot. No,
right,
no, you have to learn how to emotionally regulate first. And once
right,
you're in good emotional regulation, you won't want to get fucked up.
right.
It's I occasionally use marijuana gummies to
So do
help me
I.
sleep. And
Me too.
then I was like, I started the doubts creep in, and it's like, well, what if I just stop using them? Let's see. And I did, and I didn't use them for a couple months, and it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna use them when I want to use them, and then
Right,
I won't use them when I don't want to.
right.
And and
Well,
this,
because at the end, after you do the work, it's a choice. You at
that's
the end
it.
of the day choose to
That's
say, yeah,
it.
I'm gonna do that, right?
Yeah,
But
it
when you
becomes a
haven't done the
choice.
work, when you haven't done the work, it's like you have to do what they say in rehab. You have to stay the fuck away from everybody that uses. You can't be around people that do this. You got to like isolate yourself, and you really can't change. They say you can't change the world around you. You can change yourself, but then that means I don't get to be around people
I
because I'm
still
gonna get
have the
triggered by
same
people using.
friend for 30 years who was my drug dealer. Uh, I love him. He's a great guy,
Right,
and he's slowed way down in his intake of drinking and drugs. Not completely, but enough that he's not killing himself anymore, which
right.
is good. And the first year I stayed away from him because, I was just like, oh, I'll be too tempted.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, that's like probably the best law rule of thumb they have in rehab was, when we get out, our treatment plan was, 12 months of staying away from certain family members that trigger us, certain environments, stick to AA. And to be honest, that was a saving thing for me to stay committed to that because my rehab made me, my group that I had in rehab made me visualize myself going to court, and I show up to court and I look at my person I'm fighting and it's my entire family. And I'm taking them to court and I'm asking the judge for a divorce. I'm no longer part of this family. I need a solid cut because I can't seem to move forward in my life while I'm still engaging with these people. And my rehab people are telling me that I can't engage. So my counselor at the time says, you know what? Why don't we just have a court case and we go through a divorce? And it was real, so real to me that when I got out of rehab, it was like no fucking problem for me not to talk to my family for 12 months. And it was the most freedom year I had because I
mm,
was like holding conviction that I wanted to stay sober. I didn't want to tap into things that were going to make me go back those old patterns. And they were right. Those people were chronically keeping me in this state of wanting to use, or they trigger me or bring me back to childhood shit. And I got to grow a lot of resilience off
mm.
having that boundary for 12 months and staying committed to me and my sobriety. So I never wanted to go back. I never wanted to. I learned new ways to cope with my family. I learned new ways to be away from them and to be still subtly engaged, but from a distance. Like, look, guys, I love you. I know you guys love me, but your form of love is toxic to me.
With my mother, she was coming back in and out of my life regularly, so that was really my grandmother was spoiled me. She loved the hell out of me.
God bless
And
grandmothers. So many
yes,
of us.
but she was not the healthiest emotional person either.
Healthier than your mother, though.
Oh yeah, yeah. She had mellowed out a lot more, and she needed someone to take care of. My grandfather had just died. She was my mother's stepmother, and my mother was treated like a stepchild. She was not supported. So during the process of forgiveness for my mother, I realized the first thing that went away and praying for daily for her health and happiness was she couldn't bother me with drama anymore. She'd like come and tell me, somebody called last night, wanted my social, I gave it to him. She's not stupid. She didn't do that. She just wanted the attention that she got from me. Why did you do that? You're gonna have to change all your bank.
Right.
So she'd bring that, and I'd be like, wow, that's crazy. Well, I'll try to feed you if you need to eat.
My situation is my whole entire family's indoctrinated and they all took the shot and they all wore the mask and they all believe in the government and they're all liberal and they all want Kamala Harris. I mean, like, and I'm like the only one in a huge Greek family that is completely opposite. So I'm the enemy. I'm this conservative, um, right wing, and I'm like, I'm not, don't put a label on me and my beliefs. Just because my beliefs resonate more with one side of your political guys' agenda, I don't even believe in politics.
No, I think
They're putting
I
me in a
think
box.
politics is as real as professional wrestling.
It's no different than a
It's just
fucking
a big
rigged football game.
show. It's a big show for everybody.
Everything's a show. Football
Uh,
games, sports games,
bread and circuses. It's bread and
yeah,
circuses.
that's what I said about all the men thinking they're women and they got a lacrosse team and they're winning. It's all these men in one team that think they're women in the Olympics right now. And they just won. And I'm like,
Well,
you won because you're men. How they like just so much of this delusional reality that we are being forced to accept as normal.
Hmm.
It is um makes me nauseous. I cannot see this new thing that they want us to see. I'm fine staying in the 80s and 90s, because back in the 80s and 90s when we grew up, there was no racism. We hung with the black kids and the Asians and the kids from China. We all went to fucking school together. We walked to school. We rode the bus together. We all had boyfriends that were of other ethnicity. We didn't see them any different than our own. We were entangled in all of that. And all of a sudden, it's like my kids' generation, COVID happens. And now, if you got white skin and you're this, you're racist. What? Like, wait, how did racism just come back into our lives? It didn't exist in the 80s and 90s. Nobody gave a fuck what color you were. We partied with everybody. Fuck everybody. I mean, nobody cared. You know what I mean? We smoked the pipe off with people we didn't know. Like,
Yeah.
and
Well,
now
I think that that's more indoctrination, though.
it
I mean,
is.
because when I get over the indoctrination, and I think, okay, well, I'm just gonna accept everyone as children of God. I have to overcome a lot of stereotypical stuff, that is portrayed in every film and every newscast and everything, whether it's liberal media or
Propaganda.
whether it's conservative propaganda. You get it from both ends of
You
the
do. I
spectrum.
say doing.
There's something in psychology called priming, and women are primed to go towards certain things and discourage in such a covert way that it
Yeah.
doesn't even feel like discouragement. If a girl's like meeting with the guidance counselor and she's like, oh, I want to be an engineer. Well, don't you think nursing might be a better field for you,
Right.
or whatnot? Just try to be realistic, but
Yeah,
no
but
one's being realistic.
what about all the years of the indoctrination they did to tell women you can do everything a man can do. You don't need to go home and stay home and raise your kids. Go be in corporate America. Worry about your career and becoming this successful person, and then maybe decide if you want kids. So then they waste the years that their bodies can produce children the best.
Hmm.
And then they get 30, 35, and they're like, something's missing. I think I want to be a mom. I want a baby. Well, it's too late now. Or you've got 42, 45-year-olds having babies, and those babies are coming out retarded. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why, like back in the 50s and 60s, it was like, to me, it seemed better because women got to play the women role. We got to do what we were naturally good at, right? And then there's,
Well, I think it was and it wasn't, because I think so much of I do see so much slant toward things, even when I look at Old Testament writing, of men versus women, that I don't agree with
I don't agree with
right
that either.
now. Like, my wife and I are equal partners.
Right.
She usually defers to my leadership because my leadership is trustworthy, and that
Mm-hmm.
means that there is a paradox of trust there. She can submit to my leadership because my leadership is caring and loving enough to go,
Right.
I'm going to sacrifice because I know my wife would like this and stuff like that.
Right.
So I might make sacrifices of my own comfort
Yes.
in my guidance for her, because I'm considering her, I'm considering my children, I'm considering others in
Yeah, like my husband
trustworthily.
never told me I had to work or I didn't have to work or any of that. It was whatever was going to make me happy,
Hmm.
right? And whatever he was going to do to make that happen. And I didn't want to work when I had kids, even if that meant we sacrificed with money, even if that meant I had to step away from the beauty industry. And I was really good. I was at the top of my game then. But I felt like, well, why am I going to have kids if I'm going to work to pay for someone else to raise them? Why am I going to have kids and have another woman nanny and create a bond with that woman? I didn't have that bond with my mom. I had a bond with my grandmother. I want my children to have that bond with me. I want to be the one that puts the band-aid on them. I don't want to get a little note piece of paper at the end of the day and tell me what my kid did, right?
Yeah.
It was insane to be a stay-at-home mom. It was a lot harder than I thought. And I got a lot of fucking bullshit from working
Oh,
moms.
hell yeah.
They hated me. All the moms at school hated me for being a stay-at-home mom and being part of the school and being a part of my kids' lives and helping teachers. They're like, oh, you just need a job. I'm like,
no, I don't want to sit behind a cubicle. That's an easier route. You don't want to take my route because it's fucking hard. You have
That's
to
it. That's
sacrifice
it.
your
That's
mind.
why I always say that. I was a stay-at-home father
It's a so much
for a
work.
period of years, and my illusions were shattered. Thought I was going to eat bonbons, watch daytime
No,
television,
dude, you
and
lose
so
your
on.
mind.
No, oh
No,
my
you lose your
God.
mind, body, and spirit when you have to sacrifice all of you for those children. You're literally like life force energy. What do you need? How much food do you need? Oh, I gotta straighten that out. Oh, I gotta pick you up at this time. Oh, I gotta take you here. Who's coming over? You're gonna do a sleepover? I mean, like it was nonstop. And then
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
I'm the one fucking using at night so I can try to sleep because
I
I'm
have
using
never
amphetamines.
found a more difficult job than parenting. I have never found I've worked some hard jobs. I've never found one more difficult than
Well,
that.
that's my husband. When I got sick, he had to work and take care of the kids. And that's where it was like after the journey, now where we're at in our marriage, he's like, babe, I don't know how the fuck you did it. And you were using, and you were sick, and you still never let the kids see that.
My
You,
daughter
you
every
go,
once in a while will ask me, "How did you do it?" And I was like, "I took drugs."
yeah. You know what I
I
told, you know what I told the lady the other day? I was like, I had cocaine.
It's like
I,
it's
it kept me
amazing the
going.
things you can do on cocaine, you know.
Yeah.
I
Or
was like,
and then then I switched it to crushing ADHD medication
my
because I could get it
doctor,
from the doctor.
he recently asked me, he's like, I've lost weight now. I'm back to, but I was heavier. And he's like, "Wow, you used to always be so lean. What happened?" I was like, "Well, I'm not doing cocaine
Oh
anymore.
my
So,
God. We're on
so
the same.
isn't this a better thing, you
Oh
know?
my God,
Not
we are
20 pounds
literally going through
overweight,
the
but
same
not
thing.
cocaine."
Paul, we are really seriously going through the same thing. Like I'm I'm not fat, but I'm 20 pounds overweight. I say I'm overweight, even though technically I'm not. It's just because I did drugs my whole life and I was always fucking thin, like way thin. And for me, it feels like I'm in someone else's body, even though my husband's like, babe, you look great. What are you talking about? I'm like, God, I feel like I'm a Oompa Loompa. I'm like, and then a girl asked me the other day, well, then what's the difference? And I said, I'm not doing dope anymore. I'm
Yeah,
eating. I'm
yeah.
fucking healthy.
I eat healthier food. I
Yes.
exercise every day.
Yep,
I
me
do
too.
my thing,
Yep.
and and I could still well, that my value all changed when I detox, because when I detox I was so sick I couldn't exercise. I couldn't eat right. I couldn't do
Well,
anything.
that's why me and you both try to tell people, like, are you, when people talk about them being sick or not feeling well, I'm like, are you detoxing? Are you opening up your lymphatic system? What are you doing every day?
Hmm.
You know, it's like they don't want to hear that, oh, I'm so sorry. It's going to require you to do some work. You know,
Oh, well,
like,
that's it. That's what my second book is, this four-step process. So as I started deviating away from AA, you know, I started you know, because some things about AA were true, you know, and then some things were false, you know, and I had started developing that truth instinct, and it was like there were two things that couldn't reconcile the statement. God is everything or he's nothing. Okay, that's a true story. You can never drink again. You're like a sailor who lost it. Well, wait a minute.
that's a
Is
lie.
God everything or nothing? Yeah, exactly. That's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I was like, okay, so we're feeding people, and I never abandoned people that went out and used. I was still friend. I'm like, I'm still
Same,
your friend. I'm still your
same,
friend. You know, you don't have to
same.
feel embarrassed.
Right.
I fucked up and used many times. I was like, why don't you relapse better?
Or
You know?
how about if you've been an addict, you can't ever do anything again? I'm like, that's bullshit. I've been
No.
sober off my drug, going to rehab and getting off the dope. I can have a glass of wine. I can get a shot of tequila if I want. I'm not going to be fucking making it my life all day long. I know
Yeah.
what that life is like and I don't want to ever go there. So I
Well,
have
that's yeah.
self-control.
That's it. You regain, and I think you can have nice hedonism here and there
Yes,
if it's
I
couched in
agree.
discipline. It's got to be
Yes,
couched in discipline.
yes.
It's like discipline before, hedonism for a little while,
Well,
discipline
that and we
again.
both know detoxing. If I get fucked up the night before and I drink too much and we're out, I just the next day I hit it hard. I detox. I get that shit out of my body.
Oh, that's a perfect segue. What spiritual disciplines are you using to keep yourself emotionally regulated?
Yeah, I mean, well, I do what you do in the morning. First thing I do when I get up, I don't look at my phone. I go down my gratitude list and raise my vibration that way by listing all the things I'm very grateful for. And then I get out of bed and I check in with my energy centers and see if there's any blocks. I check in if I have any attachments from others during the night. Because, you know, just people thinking about you negatively will become an attachment. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. So I clear myself every morning. I balance myself every morning, and then I'll have a tea. And then I just kind of, I always do a coffee enema. I always do the dry sauna. I have a vibrational plate machine that if I don't have a lot of time in the day to like go for a walk or work out, I get on the vibrational plate and I lift weights. So then it's like setting my body circulation. It's fucking amazing. I highly recommend it. It's helped so many people lose weight or like gain inner strength in their joints without having to work out. You're literally on this plate and every single tissue and muscle in your body is moving. So then you start sweating. And so it starts opening up your lymphatic system. And I've just, over the year of, I lift weights while I'm doing it. So I've been able to tone up and get stronger in my joints from all those years of not, you know, really working out and getting sick. So every day I try to do something physical, I do something for my mental, and I do something for my spiritual. If I don't, all shit hits the fan.
I'm interested in both those things you just mentioned, that and the coffee enema. That just, it's something registered in my head when you
So
said
coffee
that.
enemas will open up your liver. They activate the glutathione in your body naturally. So the glutathione in your body needs to get woken up. And so the coffee enema, when you do a coffee enema, it doesn't go to your colon, it goes to your liver. When you do a water colonic or water enema, it goes to your colon. So it flushes out your colon. The coffee enemas help stimulate your lymphatic system, activate the glutathione, and it releases toxins from the body because the liver is the one organ that opens the door to get rid of stuff. So parasites, metals, nanotech, candida, toxins, all of it has to be filtered through the liver. So if you're not opening up your liver, people are like, oh, I take a liver enzyme or I take this. I'm like, okay, so you're killing, but you're not exiting it from the body. So you're just going to wait for it to circulate in your body when you could easily open it up and get rid of it. I mean, my first week of doing coffee enemas in 2018, I was taking pictures because I couldn't believe what was coming out of my body. I couldn't believe how clear my brain was. I couldn't believe all the acne I'd had my entire life was leaving my body. I mean, this is the first time since I was like fucking 12 that I don't have to wear a bunch of makeup and I don't have acne everywhere because I have a terrain that doesn't entertain the survival of bacteria,
Is it
toxins.
stronger? Do you make a stronger cup of coffee before you do it, or how exactly you
No,
do it?
I just so to make, this is what I use. It's a Gerson therapy, it's green coffee.
Okay.
And you take 3 tablespoons over boiling water, stir it for 3 minutes, and then turn it to low, put the lid on for 15 minutes. After that, I cool it in the freezer to cool down, and then you strain it. And then you do 4 cups of that enema and you put it in the bucket and you put it up your butt. I mean, at first, when I was really sick, she's like, Evangelia, you got to do these coffee enemas. I'm like, you're crazy. I'm not sticking fucking coffee up my butt. And I'm not laying on the ground with a tube up my butt. She's like, okay, well, they're going to save your life. And one day she was so mad that I was resistant to them that she showed up at my house with the bucket, with the coffee made. She goes, you can't run. I'm doing it with you. And I was like, what? And she's like, we're doing this. We're doing this. I was like, oh my God. So then I did it. The first time I couldn't even hold it in. I fucking exploded everywhere. I was like, my body was so blocked up from not really doing that kind of a function that I couldn't even hold the liquid in. So the first couple enemas, I was like calling her. I'm like, I'm not seeing anything. I don't see any parasites. All I see is the coffee. And she's like, Evangelia, that's because you're fucking blocked. Keep doing them. And then it was like, boom, after 5 days, oh my God. It was like, I saw parasites. I saw the parasite eggs. I saw worms. I saw seed-like things. I saw candida look like white cotton. And I was like so motivated after that because I started to feel better. I didn't have as much inflammation. My brain fog was clearing. I just thought, oh my God, these are a game changer. And I called her. She's like, I told you. So she's sending me articles from China, Germany, all these countries where they've been doing coffee enemas as a cancer cure for decades. Like the key to getting rid of cancer and never getting cancer is not having a body that entertains parasitic growth. And coffee enemas eliminate all that. Your body's constantly kicking it out. So I'm like, fuck, dude, I'm sold.
Kombucha?
Yeah, right. I mean, kombucha is good for when you have a really bad gut, but kombucha, I was really sensitive to it. I had done all these weird herbal parasite cleanses. I did pill parasite cleanses. Nothing did what these coffee enemas did. You have to wait 72 hours after you take a worm pill to even see if you poop out a worm, right? You do a coffee enema, man, things are just coming out. You're literally giving the power back to your body, to the things that don't belong in your body, to get the fuck out. So when people are like, what do you drink in the morning? I'm like, oh, my first cup of coffee goes up my butt. I don't drink it anymore because it jazzes up my nervous system. So I'll drink mushroom coffee or
Oh, I
green
do that
tea.
one.
Yeah. This is the one I like. I've tried different ones, but this one really helps
Oh,
my
yeah, that's
brain.
what I've been using.
Yeah, I put cinnamon in it, and it's great.
I usually mix it with my coffee because I'm an addict.
I have a
So
client that loves it with her coffee. She's
I
like,
just put it in
does
my
her
coffee. I was
coffee.
like, you should do this instead of no, I'm gonna do it with the coffee. That sounds better. You
Yeah,
know.
she does it with the coffee, and I'm like, I haven't tried that yet, but I'm pretty sure I'd get a really good buzz. I'd probably be like,
I used to do Vicodin enemas because it would make the Vicodin go into your system faster.
okay,
And
so
I'm
my
like,
son in high school, this was what, 5, 6 years ago. He's telling me that kids are sticking pills up their butt. They're doing beer bonging up their butt, like the tube,
you know,
where instead of drinking it, they're like bending over and sticking it up their butt. They're doing fucking beer enemas. They're taking shots or double shots and sticking it up their butt.
yeah, it's a good way. It's another delivery system I
It,
discovered in my you know, it's amazing the genius that comes out for the self-destruction
yeah,
when
when
that's
you
what
learn
you're
what you can do with
focused
your
on.
butthole.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
exactly.
sticking cod liver capsules up my butt.
Here's an area that I didn't mention in the questions. If you don't want to go into it, that's fine, but it's interesting to me. It's usually titillating too. You know, I had so much trauma growing up and through bullying and through the years and emotional incest and you know, and then physical stuff that happened with other people and stuff like that, that it made me pretty fucked up sexually as far as like
Well, yeah,
what
you
I would
want
think
like
in the bedroom. Yeah, I
right.
mean,
Well,
so
sexually, when you're a survivor of sexual trauma like that, um, your body only responds to that type of sex, and anything else sometimes isn't enough. So, like, I had to go through sexual trauma therapy because it was like I couldn't respond to sex unless it was like violent or if it was like bad sex. It wasn't making love. It wasn't being loving. It was like abuse.
yes.
It was abuse. And so my body was used to that, thinking that's what sex is, that's what fucking is, right? Like, come strangle me and try to make me feel like you want to kill me while you're doing me, you know? It's like
My
what
first
the
several
actual
partners, I did not have an orgasm. I could not trust another person enough to have an orgasm. You know, so I mean, I could do it manually myself, but
right.
you know, with another person, it just was not going to happen. I mean, I was still
Well, because it's all
functioning,
mental.
but but it wouldn't happen. And then you know, then other things like bullying during puberty, you know, and having a mother whose love was always conditional and dependent upon anything that you know did right, and always pointing out how why can't I be
You did
like
wrong.
this person or
Right.
that person or the
Mhm.
other person.
Yeah, you're not
It
good
made
enough.
me actually like being humiliated, you know, so I actually, you know, had that coming on. And then
That's
the
like me having a resilience to people trying to
wrongness.
bully me online. I'm like, nope, I'm gonna swip the flip. I'm gonna open my mouth and I'm gonna bully you right back and shut you down. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, you have to choose which tongue you want of mine. You want me to raise you from the dead, or do you want me to burn you down to ashes? You get, because when as a child, I never fought back. I never knew how. No one ever told me resilience. No one ever told me to speak up for myself. So now when these idiots online or people like literally try to start shit with me, I'm like, it's not going to work. I see right through
Yeah,
you. You know,
yeah, I'm proof against bullying. They don't even realize that they'll, you know, if I make a statement and they can tell instantly the person didn't even bother to read what I said, you know,
right.
and usually my thing after that is that I get an insult and I'm just like, wow, you're just so right about everything. And
Mhm.
just, I go away and it's like, Oh, thank you. No, you didn't you
I was trying to
realize you're
think of
so
thank you for your input.
egotistical that I'm just gonna tell you you're right about everything, so
Right.
you shut up,
I always
so I
say
don't
thank
have
you
to.
for chiming in.
Yes, it's like
Thank you for your input.
exactly.
Like you can get off my post now, or they'll like comment about the image, but not even read what I wrote. And they'll comment some BS. And I'm like, why don't you read the post first and then comment? Like,
Exactly.
because once you read the post, you're gonna go back to what you just said and you're gonna fucking put your foot in your mouth.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I always have to redirect it and be like, I'm not going to waste my time and sit here and have a little words of war on Facebook because everybody else is reading what I'm writing. But if I feel worthy and wanting to shut you down with my words and I want people to read that shit, I'm going to take the time to write it correctly
Yeah.
so that everybody else can read it. Because I let people bully me so hard in the beginning of being on social media. I was all, oh, it's okay. Oh, I'm so sorry I offended you. Um, let me say the right thing so that I can have a following and you guys can like me. And then when I fucking finally just broke through and was like, nope, this is Evangelia, this is who I am, this is how I speak. Please don't tell me I can't say it this way. You can say it your way, or oh well, you're not a Christian, you say shit a lot. I'm like, I'm pretty sure Jesus knows my intention behind why I swear, and I ask for forgiveness. I'm pretty sure I'm not being judged when I have, the righteous anger come through. And sometimes,
Have you watched The Chosen at all? The Jesus
yeah,
show? Oh, I love it.
yeah. What do you think about that?
I like the guy who portrays him. I think he's got a sense of humor. And I am positive, positive, positive that if I was creation of God, then he has a sense of humor, like when he created the platypus, you know.
Yeah.
Because the things that I think my wife like knows me so well, she can read my mind. If I make a certain face, she's like, I'm not gonna ask you what you're thinking about. It's just like I know you. It's like it was like when I'll be at
Yep.
work like this, and I go, "Well, what are you thinking, Paul?" "Oh, I was thinking what it'd be like to have sex with a midget."
My God.
Yeah, so it's just like yeah, some shit is gonna come out of there, and so on. That is gonna be my first sponsor in AA saw the oh boy, is he gonna open his mouth about whatever he's thinking? And so on. And I eventually got ostracized from there. I still talk to the people I like to talk to in the program, the ones that aren't brainwashed.
Right.
And it's better than them drinking and driving and killing people on the road.
Right.
So,
Right.
the level of better is still a plus. But what let's I know I missed a lot of questions here. We're gonna have to have other ones. I do want to read your book. I sent an email,
I
but
know
I
you
don't
just
know if
send
I
me your
sent it.
address and send me your
Yeah.
address and I'll send it to you.
All right, yes, and I want to send you a guest gift. But the last question I want to ask is the perfect day question. What's Evangelia's perfect day?
Hmm. Perfect day. Gosh, does that even exist? I feel like I'm having a perfect day right now. I got to wake up with peace. I slept good. I woke up in a good mood. I was excited about this call today. The sun's out. It's very peaceful. My husband's starting to feel better. Every kind of part in my life is doing okay. And if it were a perfect day, then I would have people here getting treatments or therapies. That's just where my passion is. Sometimes I sit in this house by myself and I vision, people coming in. I do have random retreats and clients, but not enough. So the perfect day for me is having more people every day for me to hold space for them and to bring them to God. Yeah, I just want to speak truth to people and bring them to God and show them who Jesus is and how Jesus loves. And most of the people that I want to help, I hold this vision of these people that don't know Jesus, and all I want to do is say, "Come spend 2 days with me. I'll show you." And that would be the perfect day if I could be doing that all day.
That's the thing that keeps me from getting distressed or hung up from the world. is, work will always be useful. I will always go to work and I will love what I'm doing. And
Mhm.
it's the funny thing is it doesn't matter if I'm washing tables, sweeping the floor,
Mhm.
or conducting, facilitating a group or any of those things. I love it. I almost never have bad days. What I used to get tired sometimes at like 4 a.m. if I was working
Mhm.
double shift. Um, and what I tell myself when I get tired, oh, my legs feel like lead. I'm so tired. The rest of the night's gonna drag by. It's like, wait a minute. Why am I telling myself that? I stopped and I
Right.
started telling myself, legs, thank you for doing such a good job.
Right.
You're gonna be energized, and through the rest of the
Yep.
night, the rest of the night's gonna fly by, and
Mhm.
it'll be a productive and good night. And after I started doing that, the legs obeyed. I'd
Yeah.
have a spring in my step. I would, and the night would cruise by, and or if I start out with having a bad day and go, it's gonna turn around, it's gonna turn around, it's gonna turn around,
Mhm.
it's gonna be a good
Mhm.
night. Something's gonna happen
I
that's gonna
used to
be
do
better.
that. I still do that when I learned through Bruce Lipton that you can basically rub your hands like this and ignite your frequency, and just use the intention of love. Like when my organs would hurt or get inflamed or I would have pain, um, the minute I would shift into fear of what was happening, I would do that and I would ask the Lord to bring in love and his light into my hands, and then I would place it on that area and I would say, thank you so much. I know how hard you're working. I'm so grateful that you're with me still. I'm sorry what you've been through, but you're hanging in there and I'm so grateful you're a part of my body. And it was like the organ got the love it needed, and it would bring down the inflammation. And I try to tell people that. They're like, yeah, right. I'm like, I'm dead serious, guys. I was like, our hands have healing power. God
Oh
created us to
yeah,
be
they do.
healers. I'm like, all you have to do is shift the intention and the perception of what's actually happening into a positive, and it changes. It's taking a negative energy and replacing it with a positive energy, right? And it sounds so woo-woo, but it's just how God created us.
That's the majority of my study over the last 6 years was how the woo-woo is actually scientific.
Yeah.
You're going reading about near-death experiences,
Yep.
reading about the psychology that works. Both Maslow and Jung had an area where they called peak experiences or transcendent function, which is basically meditation
I'm going to
and
tell you this book you
changing
have
it.
to read.
Okay.
Um, I do applied kinesiology, and this book, it's called Power versus Force: The Hidden Determinants of Human Behavior. It's probably one of the most powerful books I've ever read. Um, and he goes into the whole decades and decades of testing, and how kinesiology is the most accurate form of testing any lie, any truth, any supplement, you could literally look at a TV while a politician's talking
Mm.
and pull out a pendulum or muscle test, and it'll tell you whether it's a lie or true. And then you can measure
Got it.
people's
I'm gonna read it.
yeah, you can actually measure people's consciousness. So in this book, he explains that most of humanity, it goes from 1 to 1,000. 1,000 being, like you said just 10 seconds ago, those that have had close to death experiences. Their frequency and vibration and consciousness is all the way to 1,000. There's only like 10% of humanity at that conscious level. And then the rest, from indoctrination and dumb downing our belief system, they're running at like 200.
Mm.
So this book does such an amazing job at explaining every category, whether it's journalism, celebrities, politicians, and like the accuracy of the truth and the level of consciousness that these people are running off of. And then you can even measure your own consciousness
Hmm.
and realize, holy shit, no wonder why people don't understand me. I'm running on a whole other frequency.
Oh,
And you can
absolutely.
measure all of that with just a pendulum or muscle testing. So
Hmm.
like, when people are like, oh, I've been on so many diets and da-da-da, I'm like, why don't you just muscle test the food? Your body's going to tell you what food not to eat. Your body's going to say yes to the foods you need to eat. And your body will guide you to where you need to be. And it's very simple. Everybody can do it, but nobody
Okay,
wants to
I
learn
think, well, I think that's what those cravings are when women are pregnant. You
it. What?
need that. You need something that you're craving,
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, you've got another life growing inside of you. And if you get cravings or certain things, then why are you disobeying that?
Yeah. Yeah.
The body's trying to tell you something versus you're not pregnant and your body's literally telling you, I want a Coca-Cola and a bunch of sugar. That's parasites talking to you. You know, it's not eating habits. It's actually internally sending you signals to your brain to keep them thriving. So then you're like, oh God, I'm just going to have a cupcake. No, I'm just going to do this. And it's so hard. And so now that I know what I know, I'll muscle test. It is safe and appropriate for me to eat this right now. No. Okay, this is from Candida overgrowth. Yes. My parasite in my body wants this food. Yes. I'm like, fuck you, parasite. You're not getting it. So I've learned to like communicate with my body as a way of life, and it's gotten me this far. I will be able to muscle test if I should even, like this morning, should I go to church this morning, Lord? Is it in my best interest? No. Okay, I'm going to honor that. Or like, people will come onto the property and do an intake, and after they leave, I'll ask the Lord, is this person safe and appropriate to work with? Yes or no? Yes. No. And then I know, because God knows more than I do, and I trust that intuitive guidance. Sometimes all that muscle testing does is already validate what my mind and God was already telling me. I was just questioning it. I'm like, oh, I feel like you're telling me this, but I'm not really sure. Okay, I'm going to say it out loud. And then you say it out loud, and your energy field will literally tell you yes or no. So this book goes into the science of all of it, and all these like 60 years worth of doctors and scientists using kinesiology against an MRI or a CT scan, or all these tests, the lie detector test with criminals. And the muscle testing was way more accurate than any of those tests. The body told you the truth.
Did you read Bessel van der Kolk's Body Keeps the Score?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good
That's
book.
what gave me the motivation to write my book, because I understood through learning through Bruce Lipton that my reality of what I was living in my flesh was my body holding the score of all the shit I've been through emotionally, physically, and spiritually. So I had to take my power back, and I had to get rid of all the things that were creating my flesh to suffer. And I believe that the enemy creates those things because he wants you to suffer in your flesh. And God teaches us to honor our flesh as a sacred temple. So here we are eating things that don't honor the temple. Here we are doing things that's not honoring the temple. And then you wonder why we have so much illness and why conventional medicine doesn't tell you about parasites. They don't tell you about trauma. They don't tell you about the root cause, right? So just on a journey to reveal the truth to people and try to communicate and be on podcasts that are spewing out the truth and not fluff and fake crap, because we're in a time right now where people are literally seeking the truth. They want to hear the truth, and if they're ready for it, their discernment is going to alert them of what's true and what's not true. Like people listening to your podcast today, when you air it, they're going to know that we're speaking straight up truth. Mm-hmm. Because we're coming from personal experience that you cannot deny. The one thing you cannot deny is someone's personal testimony. And when you give glory to God for your testimony, everything changes. You can't, like, so many people take all the glory for themselves, right? I'm like, no, I just did what God told me to do. He gets the glory for my healing, because I wouldn't be here if I didn't surrender to his will.
Exactly.
Right?
Well,
yeah.
We've had a great show, and
Yeah.
Anyone who's enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe. And I'm going to end it now, but don't leave yet, because I'm going to talk off the air with you.
Okay.
So great show, guys. Blessings. I hope that you enjoyed it.
Sending love.